I mean, you put yourself in the forefront here, acting, directing, producing. Was that a conscious choice? Was that something that just something you wanted to do? Was it something that just happened because you had to do it? Where did that all stem from for you?
Well, specifically for this film, I knew that this was something that I was going to undertake myself, and not have resources, and definitely not have the money to pull off in a way that would be ideal. So I kind of tailored it to be that I would take on the brunt of the work so that I could get it done. But in general, I think I just, like a lot of people, like I got a video camera when I was a kid and started making movies with my friends, and I just have always enjoyed all the aspects. And I don't really like to separate them. It's fun for me to kind of wear all hats and stuff.
Nice. What was the challenge you didn't expect that happened for you in acting and directing in this film?
I mean, the main thing in obviously these things are normally separated because it's a lot of work.
Right.
The main thing is just like those little annoyances, like the set falls down and I'm the guy who has to cut and go pick it back up, and what, all those little things that you just get flustered and you're like, oh, I do not want to deal with lighting right now on top of everything else. And you just kind of like you drain yourself a little bit when you're trying to do it all. But it's in retrospect it's fun, but at the time.
How long did you shoot for?
I shot this movie for almost a year.
Wow.
Because the way that I did it, sort of knowing that, like I said, like I was gonna be doing everything. I kind of set it up in like weekends and and whenever other people were available. So I'd divide my time from like sitting around like physically making props and sets to actually shooting. So yeah, it took a while.
There's two things that struck me about this film that I really just think are amazing. First, the set design. I mean, the settings that you've chosen. Obviously, this takes place in a time period in which we're learning about. It's modern, but it's there's an aesthetic of a kind of an apocalyptic aesthetic in that respect. But the settings, and obviously like the weird office with all the falling down pillars and stuff like that. And I'm curious, was the set design something that you were very meticulous about and very very much, because there's a lot of homage too, like there's a lot of David Lynch homage in this and kind of things like that. Was that all part of your planning and putting together, or did you happen to find these places and just say, oh, this would be a cool place to shoot?
Yeah, no, I definitely, set design and that world, that art world is just one of my, favorite things about films. And I really wanted to have a specific look that, was maybe one part sort of acknowledging and satirizing indie film, and then one part maybe this sort of, like you said, like it's vaguely sci-fi, I guess.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to have a specific sort of out of time, look.
Were these pre-designed sets, or did you have to do some designing in within them?
Yeah, no. So I think there was only 3 physical locations. One of them, I shot a bunch of stuff in my place. So it was, breaking down my actual life and building a set in there. And then I had another some studio that was basically a blank canvas. That was just a big white room. So yeah, it was highly dressed. I'd say there's this great old house that one of the characters, Gerald, lives in. And that was probably the least amount of work, just because that house was so gorgeous. It was this wood paneled old mid-century house. Yeah.
But the other thing that really struck me too was the coloring, the muted colors, the tones, and it really set not only the settings alive, but it gave your character a lot to play with, and really just gives it this drab, interesting, introspective kind of idea. And was there a lot of filtering that you did with this? Was it something that you were really conscious of and taking it, or was this a lot you did in post?
Yeah, I'd say it's 50-50. I really wanted to get that a specific feel, and I felt like the way that it ended up being, there's sort of like two worlds in it. There's like what I like to call like the fantasy sequences, and then like
Yeah.
the world. So yeah, it's nice to have that contrast between the, like you said, like that drab gray aesthetic, and this like vibrant, um, multicolored. The creation of the multicolored thing was mostly uh, to sort of nod at that phenomenon now of like, HD stuff is so vibrant and they
Yeah.
just throw every color on there. And also I wanted to play with like continuity errors, and I thought it would be the best way to illustrate that if you just completely change a light color mid-scene. So there's a bit of that joke in there. But the colorist, he really brought this movie to life. Like there was a lot done in post. He cleaned it up.
This movie really wouldn't be. It would be you're in. I think every scene almost. I mean, virtually, nearly 99% of the film. But you have such an enriching cast to play off of. Ben Babbitt is probably the catalyst. You're kind of Tom and Jerry in this movie a little bit, and I love the executives. The executives are my favorite characters. Talk about what they gave to this thing that you didn't have going in, and how much fun it was to play off of them and play with that.
Totally. When I was sort of writing this movie, I was really frustrated with the people around me and the scene around me, and sort of the ego and the, all that. And I really wanted to create an atmosphere that felt more collaborative, and more playful. And so I picked people that I knew could create their own version of what's on paper. And everybody just did such an amazing job. Like I gave them, I was like, whatever you think this character is, let's, that's what it is. And they, no one let me down. Like, so funny. Like you said, Ben Babbitt is he's not an actor, but he was just so perfect in this part. And yeah, the execs, Lisa Torres and Frank Perry, God, everybody's so funny. Yeah, got really lucky.
I loved it. You and Ben have a chemistry that just radiates off the screen. I mean, from the opening scene, which you two are in, which is just an ill-fated conversation that every filmmaker has ever had with another filmmaker. I loved it. I just love how all of this plays into it. It's something also that I really found interesting was your commentary on social media and how it plays a role, even de facto now, kind of the go-to, oh my God, this is the next big thing kind of idea. And in drafting something like that, what research did you kind of fall down some rabbit holes to kind of get into that idea, and why do you feel like it played so well in the context of what you were trying to say?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I definitely watched a lot of stuff that that time's never coming back to me. But I think it plays so well because it's all sort of the same motives, like the people that want to, make movies are generally, and maybe I'm being negative, but there's a personality disorder that can come along with that. There's an egocentric, self-absorbed vein that runs right down the middle of all this stuff. And I think that social media has just done something real weird to people and people's brains. And it's when you're, I try not to participate in it, but when you don't participate in it and you sort of step into it, like I did to like, research this character a little bit, I was like, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this, torrent of just nihilism and egocentric nonsense.
There's a lot of, I mean, this is a satirical piece. This is but it also has a lot of, I mean, I hate to say heart and character, but it really does. I mean, but the satire, layering it is a tricky thing because it could fall off one way and it could become drab and boring. It could also, just be ridiculous and offensive. And so walking that line, was that something that took you a while to kind of develop in the screenplay, or did you kind of just have an outline and kind of played with it on set? How did you approach writing the satire and bringing the satire to life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because even when I was writing it, I was trying to sort of instill all these, like, the worst qualities of myself into this character, like want him to be like, impatient and rude and standoffish and things that we don't like to look at in ourselves. And I was a little worried that, like, I was trying to channel that obviously all into a humorous world where, you couldn't take him seriously.
Yeah.
But I was worried that he wouldn't be, you wouldn't be sympathetic to him at all. But I think I was surprised to, like, sort of find myself, feeling for this character as I was.
Me too.
Yeah, which, like, you shouldn't, because he's just,
he's trying, but
yeah, I guess so, sort of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because the idea that there's really not a good guy or a bad guy in this. This is kind of an anti-hero, there's not even really a protagonist or antagonist if you really look at it. That's a tough thing to pull off. That's a tough thing to wander into. And was it easier because you had the design, the set, the drabness? Was it easier to kind of jump into that and feel like that would work because of all the designing you did?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I love these movies that, like, sort of like, Roy Anderson, or these, like, sort of slow burn visual experiences that you kind of do question where you are. And I think a lot of it is like, this is maybe this all is an internal struggle, and I think it's hard to see main characters, and it's hard to see conflict. It's hard to know what you're doing in life. And so I kind of wanted to have that plotless, almost depressing, what am I supposed to do, aspects somehow play through it. And I hope that reads. But yeah, I think relying heavily on the sets to tell the story was a hope. And yeah, I hope that
It was a great choice.
Yeah.
It's Slamdance. This is a perfect Slamdance movie. I mean, this is Slamdance in a nutshell. I mean, this is such a filmmaker movie. And I'm curious, when you got done with it, was your aim Slamdance, or did you kind of throw it at like a dartboard and hope that Slamdance was part of it? And what has Slamdance given you that you didn't expect when you got accepted? How's your experience been, basically?
Yeah, I definitely, like, don't follow a ton of festivals, and Slamdance has always been one that I thought was really cool. So it was definitely like, it truly is an honor. Like, I think it's one of the coolest fests. So, but as far as, like, what, I wasn't expecting much because of the the virtual platform that we're in now.
Yeah.
But I've been surprised and excited to.
It's kind of ironic for you.
Totally. Yeah, I think, yeah, just but yeah, it's I've been surprised by the kindness and the accessibility, and everybody's just been actually excited to chat, or like nobody seems out of reach. Everybody in the community of the Slamdance people are just people who like movies, and they're just like cool, friendly, interesting people, and that's been a nice surprise.
This says so much about Hollywood, and because I worked there for a year, I know I can like so relate to a lot of what was going on in this film. I'm curious though, were you surprised by anything that might have been a part of the research, or anything that you kind of like scaled back or kind of tempered because you were not concerned at Hollywood strip, because that's all garbage, but more like yourself, that you had to internalize a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think a lot of things are scaled back, or at least edged towards comedy other than tragedy, because you could definitely write this movie as a tragedy, and you could definitely, I mean, you see some of these characters and think that's really exaggerated and cartoonish, but like, like you said, like working in this arena, you're like, no, this is a watered down version of of how just insane it
It's the
can be.
more absurd version of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Also, there's ambiguity to this. There's a lot of you leave a lot of brain power to a movie like this. Uh, are you a fan of that? Is that why you kind of went that direction, or because this movie could easily, because of its satire nature and its the subject matter you're talking about, could have easily hit you over the head and still worked. So did you play with that a little bit in your process, or did you feel like I want to stay in the ambiguous arena?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of that sort of dream logic vibe, where you can draw the outline of a picture, and have people sort of fill in what they want. Those movies have always been sort of more fun for me, the ones where you get to sort of interpret what the meaning is, and then and to make like some, people will come up to you and be like, "Oh, it's so cool that you made a movie about this," and you're like, "That is like not what I was thinking. That's so cool." You created your own story there, and that's great. So yeah, I think that's really fun. Those are my favorite stories to tell, where you kind of know in your heart what the meaning of the scene is, or the movie, but
Yeah.
I don't want to put it all on the page, because then, like you said, like hitting it over the head with it, that's not
I
fun.
have to admit, I didn't see where it was going to end. It was kind of open ended, and even when it ended, and the way, in the manner it did, I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody, but it was still kind of like there was a little bit of how much longer is this going to go like that? That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's cool. It's a great trick, and I think you pulled it off marvelously. What do you love about being an indie filmmaker?
Oh, I think it goes to the heart of the thing itself. You get to communicate something to somebody. It's like this moment where you have watched this movie and taken something from it. Those uh especially, I'm a pretty introverted, depressed guy, and this has always been how I can communicate to people, and it's just a lovely thing to have an idea, and put it down, and then have somebody respond to it. It's the best motivator, I think. It's fantastic. Yeah.